Nice. Okay, I think we'll make a start, and then obviously there may be a few stragglers that join as we get going. Hello, we've got a guest speaker. So hopefully you can hear me now. Sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, so hello and welcome to this Greenworks event. My name is Dan Horn. I'm an assistant director here at Fenland District Council. So in the autumn of 2020, Clarion approached Fenland District Council and Tonbridge and Morling Council to ask if we would be interested in submitting a bid for the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund demonstrator project. A nice, friendly, snappy title there. Both councils were delighted to support it. Fenland District Council submitted the bid to government and it was successful. So alongside the benefits to improve the energy efficiency and obviously the positive impact to the residents lucky enough to have their properties improved, both councils wanted to capture the learning that could then be offered to our local businesses and residents who are wanting to perhaps tap into the huge opportunities that this growth area of the economy can offer up to the 2050 target of net zero carbon. For example, utilising transferable skills to diversify into the sector or upskilling to change your career or business direction to maximise opportunities in the sector. So today we've got a range of short presentations for you that our partners as part of the project will run through so that you get an understanding of what has gone on and most importantly, how you can perhaps look to get into this area of work. Then at the end, we'll have a panel to answer any queries or questions as you have it. Obviously, you're going to hear a lot of information running through at some pace today. So if you think of a question, any burning issues, pop it in the chat and then we can pick that up later as part of the panel discussion. So I won't say much more except to say that first up it's Clarion with Daniel Archard, the Asset Sustainability Manager, Dave Bussey, the National Employer and Partnerships Manager, and Joe Pownell, the National Employment and Training Development Manager. But I really hope you enjoy this informative session. I'll hand it over now. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dan. And hello, everybody. Welcome to this afternoon's webinar. Yes, I'm Daniel Archard. I'm from Clarion Housing's asset management team. And following on from what Dan was just outlining about the project that we've undertaken in Fenland area and Tonbridge and Morling area, just going to provide a bit of background about Clarion's energy efficiency work and the upgrade work we're undertaking to our homes to sort of set the scene really for the presentations that come, and also to give an indication of this marketplace and how it is growing and will continue to grow. So very briefly about Clarion Housing, we are the largest housing association in the UK. We have 125,000 houses that we own and manage that are in England. Half of those are in London, and the remaining properties are in southern England, east of England, into the Midlands, and we have some up in the north and the north of England as well. Clarion has 4,000 staff, and in these 125,000 homes, we have 350,000 residents. So it gives you an indication really of the stock that housing association has and the type of work that the amount of work we'll be doing in terms of upgrading a number of these homes. We undertake approximately 1,000 on average, 1,000 repairs a day in these homes that we have across the country. And the largest number I've put in there is the 2 billion there, which gives you an indication of what Clarion expects that we'll need to spend on our properties over the next few decades to improve the energy efficiency of them. So if you go to the next slide, and thanks, and I'll just briefly outline. So what's obviously the setting of this? The way that we measure our stock and improve the energy efficiency, obviously looking at that A to G banding across our homes, target to improve all homes. What you'll see there, the different colors of the A to G bandings, and that profile, that graph, using those colors, and sort of showing the number of homes that we already have in that green, those green and dark green shading, showing they're already performing well in terms of band C and band B. But then those other properties, sort of yellow behind that, the ones that we are sort of concentrating on to improve those energy ratings. And looking out to 2050 and climate change, we also need to obviously look at how to deliver zero or net zero carbon homes and to move away from carbon-based and fossil fuel heating. So that gives you a flavour of that work. And in doing all this as well, a key objective for Clarion obviously is improving or reducing the risk of fuel poverty for our residents, as heating costs have gone up so much over recent years, as energy costs gone up and will be staying high in the future, that we need to do all we can to reduce those costs so that our residents can all have warm homes. And just on to the third slide that I have, just following on from what Dan was saying, over the last couple of years now, we have upgraded 470 properties, specifically within Fenland and Tonbridge and Morling, working with the councils there in partnership on this project. And the measures we've included, and you have an image there of one of the homes that was upgraded in Tonbridge. The measures have included cavity wall insulation, external wall insulation, loft insulation, and topping that up into high levels, new windows and efficient windows and doors, improving the ventilation so that we don't have high humidity and issues within homes. And reducing the air leakage in those properties, and also solar panels, you can see in that image, and efficient heating technology, air source heat pumps. And so that work has been delivered by our key contractors, EQUANs in Fenland and United Living in Tonbridge and Morling. And I said, just to say, really, the Clarion's retrofit program, I'll let them talk more about that. But our program will continue to grow in the coming decades as we deliver these upgrades across our stock as a whole. Now, just pass on to my colleagues in Clarion Futures.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. So my name's Jo. I work for Clarion Futures. We are the charitable foundation arm of Clarion Housing Group. So essentially, we provide all of the community investment services. And one of the areas that I and my colleague Dave work within is our jobs and training team. So I have got a short video, which will hopefully give you more of an insight into Clarion Futures and what we do. And then my colleague Dave is going to discuss about some of the programs of the direct support that we do around engaging our customers, in particular our tenants, to access job opportunities, but in particular around green skills and retrofit.
It's absolutely vital to have a safe and warm roof over your head. But to have a fulfilling and happy life, there's so much more. And so that's where Clarion Futures comes in. You're paying your rent, you're getting the repairs done, but we take it a step further, and all of our services are for anybody who lives in our properties.
We work in a collaborative way, so residents can have access to any of those services that we provide. We help them with interview techniques, we'll provide work placements, we provide training. If there's a training course that we're not able to secure for you, we will give you funding towards finding that training course that's right for you. It's that holistic approach that is available from Clarion Futures.
We invest in the individuals who live in our homes, providing in some cases laptops and tablets to support people to get online.
Ultimately, we're aiming to remove any barrier that prevents somebody getting on in life. It may just be that they need a bit of training, but there can be issues with the cost of childcare, and there can be mental health issues.
Myself, I've got mental health issues, and what helped us was photography. The idea of click therapy is learning new skills, learning a new hobby making people go out and capture the moment. Without Clarion's help from the outset, Click Therapy will be here today.
With our kids, the Clarion support that we had, we were able to provide free school meals where people came to Mayfield. They actually had access to hot meals that I guess tried to meet the needs that they were missing during the pandemic.
We work all over the country, hundreds of local communities.
The aim of the National Ambassadors is to make young people, especially, their voices be heard. We also try and make our communities safer.
With us doing fun days, Halloween and Christmas, it actually brings the community together. So I'm glad we've had a positive impact on the community that way.
Because of the position we're in as a landlord, we know when somebody might be facing financial changes. And we know if you're on a low income, financial changes are hard to cope with. So we will ring that household and we will say, can we help with that? And help you find ways of coping with that. So it's a brilliant way of preparing them for the future, and it's a brilliant way of stopping crisis before it happens.
I think Clarion Futures is about focusing on the individual so that they're able to take advantage of opportunities that come to them in their lives, and particularly around finding work, improving their sort of educational qualifications as well. So a really key service, I think, at this moment in time.
Okay, so hopefully that's given you a really good overview in terms of Clarion Futures and what we do. We want to talk more so on the jobs and training front, which is where myself and Dave work within, and that is all about how we support our customers to access employment opportunities. We do a lot of work working with employers and SMEs, and we'd be really interested to see how we could support some of you on the call today if you are looking for upskilling or potentially supporting new entrants into the sector. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague Dave, and he's just going to talk a little bit about one of the programs that we've run recently with one of our contractors.
Brilliant. Thanks, Joe. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for so many of you for joining us today. So my name's Dave Bussey. I'm the National Employer and Partnership Manager sitting within Clarion Futures, and that video that we've just shared should give you quite a good insight in some of the community investment work we do. I just wanted to share a bit of a message with regards to a recent program we've run with one of our core contractors. So it's really important with all of this investment into Clarion Homes that we actually work really closely with our partners and maximise the impact that we can have for our residents. So not just by decarbonising their homes and making them more energy efficient, but also looking to see how we can create real pathways to sustainable employment opportunities and training opportunities as well. So a key part of that is the opportunities that come through our partners. So there's a couple of initiatives we've recently run with partners. One of the first ones was looking at entry-level roles into sustainable green jobs and also green enabling jobs. We looked at, we put together a co-designed 3-day program for resident liaison officers, which is a critical role for both our partners and for Clarion to have a conduit and a person that acts as a go-between between the resident and also the contractors and Clarion themselves. We were quite successful. We had a very big uptake from residents with lots of transferable skills. Most of them hadn't worked in housing before, hadn't worked in construction, but demonstrated a lot of skills around customer service and just needed that opportunity and that inroad to get them in front of live vacancies. And we've secured 2 residents so far into resident liaison roles, working on our estates and forming a really sort of intricate and important part of this journey. Just before Christmas, we ran our first pilot initiative with one of our core contractors around domestic energy assessors and retrofit assessor training, which was delivered over 6 days. Excuse me, we had 10 customers join us on that programme, all fully committed, and they're now in the process of putting together a portfolio of work. There's about 20 hours of additional work. They're going to be conducting domestic energy assessments and retrofit assessments on properties within the Clarion stock and also their own properties as well, which will hopefully lead to some really good tangible outcomes, not just from an employment point of view, but they're also being supported by Joe's team, which she heads up the business startup initiative that we run at Clarion, which is also a national programme. So it's a really good opportunity for us to work with residents and give them the access to these roles to be able to become self-employed, really well-paid positions, and a really sustainable career path from them. As Joe mentioned, like, we're really keen to engage with contractors, also with residents residing within our community, and put together some programs and support to see how we can enable our residents to really get access to some of these opportunities. I'm going to hand over to our colleague at EQUANs now, just to give some insight into the works that they did on the Fenland development. But as I say, we're really keen to work with you and engage, and look forward to making contact with some of you in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Some slides. Brilliant. Okay, so I'll just quickly introduce myself. We have the next slide there, please, if you can. So my name is that's it. My name is Brian Stern. I'm division manager for EQUANs. I've been within this business now for nearly 26 years, working for the last probably 10 years working with Clarion. And just next to me on my right hand side is Sars Basani, who is one of our senior technical retrofit advisors. So we're just going to give you a little bit of a flavour of the sort of works that we've undertaken and how we came by actually undertaking these works on the social housing. So initially, the Social Housing Decarb Fund, if you like, or SHDF as it's called, was launched, as been mentioned by Dan Horn, back in 2020 as part of the government's sort of initiative to reduce carbon emissions by 2050. So the funding scheme was intended to act as an initial investment, sort of lessons learned, and encourage innovation in deep retrofit. And EQUANs and Clarion supported Fenland District Council in winning the bid. Just one of 18 successful bids actually secured nationwide. The SHDF fund demonstrator had strict delivery requirements, such as the final target of properties on the scheme, to achieve vastly improved thermal performance, which was measured as a space heating requirement, which was at the stage of the demo was set at 50 kilowatts per square metre per hour space heating requirement. And obviously the requirement for all the works to be fully compliant, they introduced this best practice for retrofit PAS 2035. I'll go on a little bit more about how that became a bit difficult for us and the challenges that we managed to sort of overcome to enable us to deliver the works. If there's anybody that lives in Fenland, you'll probably know how the property lists are quite spread across, and also there's some seriously worse performing properties, part of Fenland stock with respect to energy and efficiency, with expensive off gas and very little insulation. So EQUAN's in-house retrofit solutions team worked closely with our design team and ensured that we delivered a full insulation system that met the client's SDF requirements. So just a bit of a flavour. So on the demo, which was the initial works, we completed 57 addresses. And then we went into wave one, which was a number of 170 addresses, but there's a different space heating requirement. And wave two, which we're currently working on at the moment, is delivering 49 addresses. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick overview of the works. And as was mentioned by Daniel Archer before, the sort of measures that we were doing was loft insulation, cavity wall, external wall insulation, high performance windows and doors, new flat roof insulation, demand control continuous extract fans in the wet rooms, some low carbon heating, so air source heat pumps, door undercuts and solar PV panels. This was all done on the demonstrator. So as you can see by the pictures in front of you here, this is part of the demonstrator work. So because the demonstrator works, the space heating requirement was quite low at 50 kilowatts per square metre hour. We had to have a thicker insulation on the wall. We also decided that we were going to insulate below the DPC. So as you can see here, there was a hell of a lot of immobilisation work. We had to dig great big trenches. We had to move all the drainage out, etc., etc. And if we can just go to the next slide, please. You can see that when we actually commenced on wave two, we changed the criteria around. So because the criteria was a 70 to 90 kilowatt per square metre per hour, we were able to reduce the amount of insulation that we put on the walls, and we also didn't have to insulate below the DPC. So this itself saved Obviously, Clarion a considerable amount of money. The cost between the two was quite substantial. And as you can see here, the picture at the top left is the Rockwool insulation going onto a bungalow. The picture next to it is just the first coat going on, and then the picture to the right and below is a finished product. And then just on the left at the bottom there is a photograph of some brick slips going on, because some of the properties were brick slip addresses, so we had to work quite closely with the planning department to see whether we could render the properties or match them to existing properties within that vicinity by using a brick slip. Next slide, please. So just as I say, just some of the challenges that we faced at the pre-design stages. Residents buying for the scheme. It's because it's a new scheme, a lot of residents were a little bit naive as to what was going on. It was new to everybody, so we needed to make sure that we gave as much information as we can to the residents to get them to buy into the scheme. But we had a big task in being able to do that. The properties are spread out across the rural location, so a geographical spread of properties made it very difficult to make a decent program, if you like. And then the PAS 2030 requirements to carry out the depth of the retrofit assessments that we needed. And then obviously residents' refusals, because again, residents weren't too sure, and because we'd never really had done this type of work before, it's very difficult to convince residents of the type of work we're doing, because it's very intrusive. As you can imagine, you're ripping out the windows, you're putting external wall insulation on the wall, you're putting new fans in, you're taking doors off, you're cutting them. So for the demo works, it was quite intrusive to the residents. And also it was just new to the industry. The whole paperwork system is a massive task, being able to lodge everything. So it takes a lot of time, a lot of admin involved in it. And then design challenges, really. Obviously, as I said before, we work quite closely with Fenland's planning department via a retrofit designer and architect to seek the best finish for those properties in those areas. There were multiple archetypes within the same roads, difficult detailing with bay windows, canopies, drop eaves, concrete gutters. So each one had to be designed separately, and then there was extensive thermal bridging modelling that we need to do. We're putting so much insulation in. What we don't want is cold spots. And then obviously things that are on the face of those buildings, such as meter box locations, gas pipe locations, all those had to be looked at. And we actually developed an insulated electric meter box to go on the external of the building. Next slide, please. Installation challenges, really. Ensuring that all installers were fully compliant to PAS. We had a lot of installers that have done this sort of work before to EWI standards, but not to PAS 2035. So we had to sort of get through a learning curve and teach them and actually get them PAS approved. Programming numerous trades in an efficient way. As I said, a lot of work being done. A lot of the properties in the Fenlands have overhead electric cables, so that was a real blockage for us, because we needed to get involved with UK Power Networks to enable the cables to be moved off the wall. As anyone knows, when you're dealing with the utilities, they're not particularly quick. So there was a lot of upfront work to ensure that we can move cables off the wall, dig trenches for the cables to be run into the ground, and then there was issues with residents that weren't having the work. So that was a very, very big challenge for us, but we managed to get over it. And again, just coming out the back of COVID, there was obviously an industry-wide labour and sort of material shortage. So overcoming the challenges with the supply chains and SMEs, and I'm hoping that we've got an audience here of some of these people with us today, some small SMEs and potential maybe future employees. The biggest challenge was finding adequate supply chain, as mentioned before, that were PAS approved. We lent on existing supply chain that we had, and we had to get them through this whole process, which our retrofit technical team helped us do. Our internal RTS team worked and assisted and guided the supply chain to become PAS approved. We held meet the buyer days within the local areas of Fenland and surrounding boroughs to find new supply chains, and we upskilled some of our existing supply chains. Some of our existing supply chains that have done other types of disciplines for Clarion, because that work is now drying up. We got them to retrain and actually do other types of work for us as well. So as we mentioned before, we're always looking for new supply chain. So, if we've got any small SMEs on here, I'm happy to, pass over my details, but we're looking for the sort of companies that are installing windows, cavity wall, external wall insulation, groundworks, roofline works. We're also looking for new staff that in the local areas that we're working in, really. So resident liaison officers, anyone that feels that they want to move into site management, we offer training for all of that as well in all those areas that we're currently working in. We're also looking for retrofit coordinators and designers as well. As I mentioned before, there's a serious lack of these people within the industry now. And once all the other housing associations start to develop their own SHDF schemes, we're going to all be fishing out of a small pond, really. So we really need to build our own supply chain for our own work. We held retrofit workshops with new and existing supply chains in order to share knowledge. That's, you know, this sort of work, you really need to share knowledge with each other. We have a dedicated EQUANs site team managing these works, and they've been just as much as everybody else. They were a bit naive to it at the beginning. They've now worked on the scheme for 3 or 4 years, so they've now got that skill knowledge and they're able to pass that on as they go through. Next slide, please. And then just lessons learned and successes, really. So we've learned the strengthening of the relationships with our supply chain. We know how important our supply chain is to us. If we don't have a good supply chain, we just can't churn the work out, unfortunately. So we need to make sure we have a good supply chain. Strengthening our relationships with the client. I think the relationship with the client is great. We have constant meetings, design meetings, technical meetings, so we can all share best practice with each other. We have an understanding of the local area and residents, and experience dealing with the retrofit of multiple archetypes with other geographical areas. Over the years, we've been working on this now. We're sort of getting to learn how to do it correctly now. And the enhancement of internal retrofit and specialism within EQUANs. So just for our own in-house services, if you like, we're past 2035 retrofit assessors, retrofit coordinations. We do pre and post air tightness testing. We do thermal imaging, and we're also registered as installers as well. And dedicated past 2035 focused in-house operations and site teams. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to get my colleague next to me just to talk a little bit about the technologies that we use within this scheme.
Hi. So we obviously are accredited with Elmhurst, and then when we submit a property as fully lodged, we lodge it through Trustmark. So we actually get audited twice, one through our accreditation body Elmhurst. So we are making sure that we are complying with every single past 2035 paperwork there possibly is, and believe me, there's a lot. Same with Trustmark, we get audited again, make sure that everything is up to scratch, including our own paperwork and the installer's paperwork. So it could range from just getting minor photographs of windowsills to the paperwork they actually need to produce for compliance. Then for air tightness testing, we have 2 potential options that we can do in-house. So we have a blower door kit. So we use this more for diagnostic testing. So if the property is particularly leaky, we can use it to find out where the leaks are coming from. But we use a kit below, which is pulse. So it's a lot more easier to carry around and quicker. And it's also past 2035 approved. Then moving forward, when we model the properties and we create a spec and we create it to a space heating standard, we use design SAP. And then also we use thermal imaging and thermal bridging, just to make sure that we are not creating any cold spots in any insulation work that we are doing. Obviously, we don't want to exacerbate an issue of condensation or mold, and we don't want to create an issue of that as well.
Thank you, Ross. And then just quickly finishing off on residents' consultation and residents' voice. I think this is quite important, really. If there's anybody on here that wants to become, we're looking to move into sort of becoming an RLO for us. Maybe if we can just quickly give on to the next slide. I think the difficulty for this is there's so much of this going on that there's not really a great knowledge. So we need to have residents' consultations and residents' voice. You know, the works that we do, they're very intrusive nature. The demographic in Fenland is quite vast, really. There's a lot of elderly residents that are living within the area. Construction time is down to 6 to 8 weeks now. When we originally started the demo, because of the works that we were having to do, you're looking at anything between sort of 6 to 12 weeks, and that's a lot of work going on. And also this is weather dependent. So this time of the year, when it's cold and it's -2, -3, there's not a lot of work that can be done because it affects the finished product. Nervousness around transitioning to the new technologies. A lot of the residents were, you know, where they're used to using an existing boiler system on the demo, we're then turning around and we're now giving them an air source heat pump. Some of the residents were a bit unsure on how to use it. It's not difficult, but if you're not used to using it and you're used to working with a conventional boiler, it can be quite strange for some people. And a lack of the understanding of the tangible benefits, really. So just press the button, please. So what we want to do, really, and how we're going to try and overcome this going forward, is we're going to gain the residents' trust and buy-in. We're going to virtually in person have early consultation with these residents. We want to look at events with an educational theme. Our head of retrofit technical solutions and our retrofit coordinators and supply chain to explain exactly how these works are undertaken. And our resident liaison officers our site managers will answer any queries that we have, because they're all skilled now and know exactly how to explain the works that are going to be done. As we said, the further challenge is the geographical spread of properties, which can make customer discussions very difficult. If you're spread apart, if you're working on a block where you've got a lot of residents, you can have a residents champion. It's a bit difficult to have that, but we're looking for that process to have a resident that can be a champion to explain to other residents. And then looking at providing a sort of and develop a customer journey booklet. So from the time we make the initial contact to explain exactly what the process is, from the original retrofit assessments to the actual works, what happens during the works, the type of works we're going to be doing. We want to develop one of those booklets so we can give to the residents that have a real understanding of what's happening. We're in the process of completing an aftercare booklet, giving the instructions on how the residents use their home, because we're providing this lovely work for these residents, and the houses are nice and warm, but they need to know how to use it. It's not like conventional anymore. So, you know, a lot of residents are a little bit naive as go, well, how do I use my house? So we have put together a booklet which hopefully will explain exactly how these residents can get the best out of their properties. And that's it from me. Waffling on. Thanks
ever so much, Brian and Saz. Really interesting presentation, and really interesting to understand the lessons learned from the huge amount of work that's gone on in the Fenland area. But as we said at the start, Tonbridge and Morling have also had a lot of work done in their patch, and so we can hand over now to United Living and Rebecca Hart, who's the decarbonisation project manager at United Living, to talk about the Tonbridge and Morling experience.
Hi all, nice to see you all. It's actually going to be a little bit of a collaboration on this presentation, myself and Bill and Paul. I think Bill's going to open up, if that's okay. I'll jump on shortly. Thank you.
Yeah, over to me. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Bill. I'm a contracts manager for United Living, currently working on the SHTF project, or the Wave 2 project. I'm joined by Bex, who we just met. Bex has got a social housing background and has recently joined United Living. Not too recently, she's been with us for a little while now. We're also joined by Paul, who's a director of Net Zero. They're a SME that's joined United Living on this Wave 2 project as well. The aim of our presentation is just to briefly outline our experience of supporting SMEs into this kind of sector, and to tell you why we think it's important for SMEs to be involved in these projects. As a team, we'll give you a brief summary of the projects we've worked on and try and provide a little bit of context. We'll run through some of the key lessons and learnings that have helped us to build a better supply chain, and tell you a little bit more about what we're doing now. We've got a case study to show you, and you'll be hearing from Paul obviously a little bit later in the presentation. We think it's important that Paul gives his view sort of almost from the horse's mouth, so to speak. I've realised that we're not moving the slides on. Whoever's in control, could you... Here we go. That's the one. So in terms of corporate responsibility, Clarion set us annual targets every year to ensure that we engage with the local community for various different things, recruiting apprentices, social value, etc. We've tried to adopt that strategy to boost our engagement with the local supply chain. Particularly the SMEs that we're trying to work with. We've upskilled some of the teams that we've had with us along the way. We've been working for Clarion for a number of years, and obviously when we moved over onto this type of work, some of our supply chain needed to upskill. We've supported them through that. We've also got some new supply chain as well. We find that local SMEs understand the local area challenges a lot better. They can help us to find some solutions to some of the issues that we do have. I mean, in my region in the south, we're working across large areas, and by talking and working with local people, we feel that we can gain from their experience of working in the areas that we don't always know. We find employing locally means less travelling, less distance travel costs. That leads to better morale, happier workforce, and ultimately a better product for our customers. We know from our sort of experience that ad hoc government funding can hinder our supply chain growth, just due to a bit of lack of confidence in the market. On top of that, we try and tried to deliver a complex retrofit project for a pandemic, which was difficult, and obviously through the recent cost of living crisis. And we feel that working through these challenges has led us, United Living, to a better understanding of what the supply chain needs from us as a principal contractor. Examples for good forward planning, continuity works, ideally throughout the whole financial year and then into the next. Working with our SMEs have sort of led us to collaborate well together, minimise our issues related to recruiting and retaining our local labour. We've successfully delivered projects using this kind of thought process, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. So that's my introduction. I'll pass you over to Bex, she'll run you through the next part of our presentation. Thank you.
Cheers, Bill. Thanks a lot. So yeah, just a bit of an overview about the projects, really. I mean, EQUANs touched on it before, but obviously SHDF, Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund, the demonstrator, that's what the D is for. We started off with 60. Wave one's a slightly higher figure at, well, a lot higher, what, 145, and then rolling out to wave two, it's 3,100 we're delivering for Clarion. So you can really see how the government's in for a penny, in for a pound, really driving this agenda. It's increased confidence, and then we're responding positively by going on these massive recruitment drives and trying to upskill as quickly as possible. So the demonstrator project was really about cutting our teeth. Everybody was learning together, and it was really about understanding what does good quality retrofit look like. EQUANs have covered some of the challenges, technical challenges in their presentation. We experienced similar issues. Needless to say, it's really important as a subcontractor entering the retrofit industry that you need to be solution focused, because that enables us to make the best decisions. It's very different to installing single components such as kitchens and bathrooms. So kind of go out there, go into it with an open mind. Wave one, we learned that we wanted to keep the PAS services separate to the installers to minimise conflict of roles, so we're not seen to be marking our own work. We started looking more closely at what processes we needed to implement to deliver the wave two projects. Now we're well and truly into the wave two schemes. We're putting processes in place to drive quality, working with our supply chain to help us, supporting them, supporting us, to drive quality and compliance, as well as building capacity and loyalty within the supply chain. So as a kind of, combined learnings from those three key projects, we now, and have been for the past year, similar to EQUANs, been doing meet the buyer events, been networking, we're on various groups, to help maintain positive relationships and successfully recruit, particularly with a focus on SMEs. All the reasons we've spoken about today. We work with clients and partners, so this is one of the things that we do to try and engage with SMEs. Clarion had a workshop, I think it was November, where we looked at how we could identify steps to, scale up the supply chain. And we feel that these sessions are key for consolidating and sharing learning. We partner with training providers and other groups. So we are a partner for the Supply Chain Sustainability School, which is a platform that we can onboard subcontractors so they can access personal training programs, and other organisations that offer funding and free training. So SMEs can kind of get free courses or subsidised courses for their staff, so they can start entering into these green jobs. We engage with supply chains, help inform succession planning. So wherever possible, we share information with subcontractors about our upcoming projects. I think Bill mentioned one of the key things is that our subcontractors, it's really important. They don't want to just know what they're doing for the next 6 or 12 months. They want to know what they're doing in, a couple of years' time. So wherever possible, we have those open conversations. We also need to check that we are working with new contractors. We send it checking whether they're coping. We know it's so easy to overpromise, but in turn, when the contractor starts to feel the pinch, quality is one of the first things that suffers. Can we go on to the next slide, please? Great. So yeah, I know it's not a installer perspective or case study, but you know, customer liaison, like both speakers have said, it was really, really important. It's key to the success of retrofit projects. Demi is actually a Clarion resident who joined United Living as a trainee through Clarion's employment training programme. She did a 3-day course combined with a week's work experience, which gave her the opportunity to see her work in this industry. She was having a career change. It was the right thing for her, and it paid off because she clearly loves the job and she's a real asset to the team. So whereas this isn't an example directly linked to subcontractors and installers, it is testimony that collaboration, robust engagement and the right opportunity offers rewards for everyone. The next slide will hopefully give you a better insight into what you can expect as a subcontractor partnering with United Living and Clarion. So I want to take this opportunity to introduce you to Paul from Net Zero. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you, Rebecca. So hello, everyone. I'm Paul. I'm one of the directors at Net Zero Surveying Solutions. We're an SME. We set up in September 2021 to deliver retrofit assessments, EPCs, technical surveys, etc. across the energy efficiency industry. So the first few months for us was mainly about promoting the business, expanding the network. But then from January to December 2022, we generated 360k in revenue, and we focused on Eco3, LADs and small SHDF projects. We wanted to continue to grow the business, so we reached out to a lot of local authorities, i.e. Clarion, and in November 22, I was pointed in the direction of Bill and Rebecca, and they trialled us on a small pilot scheme to work on, it was 87 properties for the Clarion SHDF Wave 2 project, and that started in March 23. So we worked closely on obviously developing the processes, ensuring the quality was there, and in turn this led to an additional 1,600 retrofit assessments on that same scheme, as well as another 3 projects through United Living with different housing providers. Because of this, in 2023, we generated circa 620k in revenue, which was a 72% increase from 22. This allowed us to develop our sister company, Net Zero Renewables, with a focus on installing solar PV. And as of 2024, April, our aim is to be PAS accredited for all insulation, all heating measures, and to be MCS accredited for solar PV and air source heat pumps, as well as open a southern office to help attract more locals to the workforce. So I guess the practical upshot is United Living and Clarion have given us the consistency we need to grow our business and the opportunity to be involved in my opinion, some of the best projects in the industry whilst learning every day. So from all of us at Net Zero, we just want to say a huge thank you to everyone that's been involved in the journey from United Living and Clarion. So it's much appreciated, guys.
Cheers, Paul. Let's go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so I think the key takeaways for this is, you know, what we've covered is the background, the purpose. I think what we've shown is collaboration is absolutely key to the success, both in terms of the Green Skills agenda and successfully delivering these complex retrofit projects. And we spoke about green projects and them upscaling. So there really is opportunities for all. You know, there's enough pie for everybody. Get involved, you know, upskill, don't be afraid, network. The retrofit world really is open for sharing, learning. It's quite a supportive community. As our clients, of course. Projects and learnings, we know what good looks like now and we need to maintain it. We can only do that with support of well-trained, informed subcontractors. And what we're doing now, you've heard the case studies, you've heard from EQUANs and ourselves what we're doing to try and support the course, and the proof is in the pudding. You've heard from Paul, you've heard some of the great case studies. We just need to build on that and yeah, keep on keeping on. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks. That was really interesting and great to see, the setup of an SME and now beginning to grow and develop as a business to take advantage of all the opportunities that this area of work does. So that was great. Really interesting to hear. So we're moving on rapidly. Next up, we've got the Retrofit Academy in Greener South East, and welcome Adrian Marshall, who's the Network Development Manager. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Dan. Waiting for my slide. Yep, so I'm the Network Development Manager, and also part of that title is Funding and Compliance Manager. So it's my job here to go out and find the different pots of funding available to help pay for the qualifications to our learners, and with the compliance hat on, make sure that everything's done right so we get paid. Okay, next slide, please. So, yep, the Retrofit Academy, we are the leading provider of retrofit qualifications in the UK, and we have a very ambitious target of training 200,000 competent retrofitters by 2030, or certainly help facilitate through a number of partners and work with different organisations to do that. And we have a vision where a world where every home is warm, healthy and low carbon. Okay, so I want to just put this slide in here just to show a little bit about the type of roles that we do, but the type of roles within PAS 2035 and retrofit. On the left there, we can see it's not just 200,000 people that we want to train. It's been estimated that 30 there needs to be 430,000 people in the industry to be able to hit the government targets to reach net zero. And you can see the different job roles within there. The majority is the trades, that's for sure. The actual people doing the installation, the retrofit installers going out doing the different types of insulation, heat pumps, etc. Just going up to the top there with the designers and the evaluators. The retrofit designer, has been mentioned before, it's a key part of PAS 2035 and retrofit to make sure that the plans are all in place. And then where we come is the retrofit coordinators. So this would be somebody who project manages a retrofit project from start to finish. We are the leading trainer of retrofit coordinators in the UK so far. In fact, SARS, who we spoke to, who was speaking before, we've trained her, and in fact, she's doing another qualification with us at the moment. And we make sure that all of our courses are very much up to date and regularly update them to make sure that the latest PAS guidelines are included and updated. It was mentioned before, very interesting actually, about the retrofit, the retrofit advisors, or getting the resident buy-in. Retrofit advisors aren't necessarily a role within PAS 2035. We don't need to be one to do any of the jobs. However, it's very clear, and interesting, EQUANs saying that before, that we're getting a lot of feedback. We speak to a lot of local authorities, social housing providers, large companies such as EQUANs, United Living, and the main obstacle that they've got at the moment is certainly that getting that resident buy-in and getting the right information, advice and guidance to the end user, to the person whose home they're going in. And we're finding a lot of people are wanting to take up our retrofit advisor course at the moment in order to not just employed people, but we had a conversation with a large housing provider yesterday who are wanting to put it out to the residents where the initial SHDF activities going on, so that they could be well informed when people come to them and say, well, it happened to you, what happened, be able to give that advice, that right advice and guidance. And a retrofit advisor is certainly a key point of that, both employed positions within a company at all levels, but also within the community as well. We also train retrofit assessors, and I can come on to that, which is obviously a very key part of the process. Okay, can I have the next slide, please? Okay, so what do we offer? First of all, we've got the level 2 understanding domestic retrofit. This is a great tool for people who they want to get the foot in the door for retrofit. It could be somebody working in any sort of industry wanting to test the water of retrofit to find out if it's going to be the right career path for them. We get a lot of people from company secretaries up to CEOs where their business is involved in retrofit. They need to know the basic information at quite a decent level so they can hold decent conversations. Or it could be somebody who is upskilling themselves into retrofit. So it's a great place to start the retrofit journey, and it really does give people a good understanding. It's actually taken from kind of a construction point of view, so it does go into quite a bit of detail about the fabric of a house. The level 3 award in domestic retrofit advice is our next qualification. The standard person, the most typical person who would take this qualification would be a resident liaison officer, somebody who's providing that face-to-face advice and guidance to residents. But again, we have people come on board this qualification from construction companies, the installers, local authorities, not just the housing associations, anyone who would be giving that customer advice or speaking to members of the public or with other businesses who need to know about retrofit. And we train them to give that understanding of what's going to happen, what the disruption means to them, what the benefits are going to be for the property, and also, crucially, what it's going to mean for their energy bills. Okay, next slide, please. So this is a new qualification for us. The level 3 award in energy efficiency in old and traditional buildings. It's great for somebody who's working in retrofit already, who might have housing stock or going to be working in areas with a lot of older and traditional buildings, and they need to know a good bit of information about it so they can make sure that they're making the best choices for those properties. Whether they be an installer, a retrofit coordinator wanting to upstall, a designer, or even a DEA/assessor. We're finding this is our most popular course at the moment as people are wanting to upskill to get this specific bit of information so that they can confidently work on these older and traditional buildings. And then we have the level 4 award in domestic retrofit assessment. This is for upskilling DEAs to do retrofit assessments. There are level 3s available. However, we feel that to be a competent retrofit assessor, doing an 8-hour CPD course with a multiple choice level 3, we feel that people should be trained to a higher level. So we've got quite an in-depth 8-week domestic retrofit assessment course to make sure that the people going into that industry can do real in-depth assessments. We also offer as well a combined domestic energy assessor and retrofit assessor course. We do it as one package, and that is also very popular. And it's a great way to get people into the industry. I think must have about 100 people on this very moment, half of which will be maybe 60% are unemployed, wanting to get that route into assessment and set themselves up as self-employed. So a very popular course, the combined domestic energy assessor and retrofit assessor course. And then we've got the there we go. Our retrofit coordinator and risk management level 5. As I said before, we're the leading supplier of retrofit coordination qualifications in the UK. I think we've trained 2,500 to date. If a few people are on this call, and it really is. It's for somebody who's wanting to upskill to project manage retrofit projects. We can, for the requirements to be a retrofit coordinator, you either need to have a background in architecture or design. You could have experience in site management or a good number of years experience in the built environment. Project management, there are a lot of routes into it, and we would have that conversation with you if you were interested to have a look at your CV, look at the type of work you'd be doing, and make an informed decision on, yeah, this is the right qualification for you, or if you want to go for another route into it. Okay. So funding, as I said, it's my job to go out and find the different pots around the country. We have a national pot of funding running at the moment. We can take people on at the moment for the next month, maybe 6 weeks, hoping to be extended. That's with DESNES. and that is eligible anyone who is 19 plus and living in England and eligible to live and work in the UK. Then we have skills bootcamp contracts, different ones around the country. None really in the southeast, but we did have a contract with Cambridge and Peterborough Combined Authority, and we're hoping to renew that from April, which might be of interest to some people on here. But generally, if you're living or working in any of the areas that are shown, we'd be able to get you the funding. And the national funding is fully funded for anyone who's unemployed or on universal credit or a carer. A contribution of between, I think, anything from, I think it starts at about £200 for energy efficiency for old and traditional buildings, up to about £1,000 for the level 5, depending on the type of company, the size of company that you're working for, with the larger discounts being for SMEs. And for our skills boot camps, they are fully funded for career changes, for anyone who's unemployed, anyone who's self-employed, be fully funded. And then there's a smaller contribution required for anyone being put forward by their company. Okay, and then the next slide is actually probably not too relevant, but we are doing a lot of work with the Greater South East Net Zero Hub, helping, advising them get set up to put together. Next couple of points, please. There you go. We're setting up local authority steering groups. We're doing a lot of workforce development, working with a lot of employers, mapping out the career pathways, mapping out, and quite crucially for the work that's going on at SHDF level at the moment, we're working with a lot of employers, a lot of the housing associations, or the contract holders, to map out actually, okay, you've got X amount of £1 million worth to do your properties. What does that mean in terms of the number of installers that you want to, that are going to be needed in that area, the number of coordinators that you're going to need to employ, or your supply chains are going to need to employ, the number of retrofit assessors you're going to need to actually go and do the assessments. So we're working with the Greater South East Net Zero Hub and a number of key employers around the area to do that. We call it workforce development, to really map out what is needed in order to deliver the projects that people have got on at the moment. And I think that's me. It is. Yeah. If you like any more information, visit the Retrofit Academy website, or email myself or my colleague Manny.
Great. Thanks. Thanks, Adrian. And that triangle of all the opportunities and different job types and the numbers required leading up to 2030 was really eye-watering, and shows really the potential of the opportunity for anybody wanting to get into this market. So really interesting. Thanks for that. So our last key presentation is from a combination job between Mid Kent College and the College of West Anglia here in Fenland, and that's Alex Meads and Richard Wild. So I'll hand over to you both. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Dan. I think that's me up first. So I'm Richard Wild. I'm the Green Skills project manager for Mid Kent College. So I just wanted to highlight really how we're intending to play our part in reaching net zero targets, which for us means developing our existing green training provision. And to enable us to do that, we're utilising the Local Skills Improvement Fund that's available at the moment to meet the Local Skills Improvement Plan priorities in the construction sector. So building on our existing training provision, the image that you can see now with the Skills Factory was what we built using the previous fund, the Strategic Development Fund. And it's the space that we're using at the moment to deliver all our green skills. It's 9 repurposed porta cabins that have reached the end of their life. So we were able to create a building that does what it says on the tin. Really, it's a sustainable construction, utilizing renewable energy solutions, and we're using air source heat pumps and heat recovery handling units to heat and ventilate the building. So that's what we have at the moment. We can just move on to the next slide, please. The types of things we're doing in that space at the moment is we're able to raise awareness around net zero challenges and deliver courses that increase knowledge of renewable energy solutions, sustainable construction, and the retrofit roles and responsibilities. So we are partners with Adrian, with the Retrofit Academy for the Southeast. So we deliver the courses for the retrofit roles and responsibilities and the ones that he's just highlighted now. So we do recognise there are limitations in what we can do at the moment. Hence, we're looking to build on the facilities that we already have. So we can just move on to the next slide, please. So the facility that we're looking to build under the LSIF fund will be to deliver practical training events. It's on the same campus, it's all at the Maidstone campus. So we're hoping that this will give us a complete solution to deliver sustainable construction courses, retrofit and renewables, but to be able to move on to delivering practical skills for the future installers and operatives within retrofit. And the next slide, and just typical, the example of some of the building fabric measures that we're thinking that we could use in that new space. But we're kind of mindful that we want to stay within the whole house solution theme. So rather than carry out these measures individually, we're looking to obviously increase energy efficiency of homes and make them more healthy. But we want to, as well as insulating homes, be mindful that we need to ventilate. If we're installing mechanical services measures such as heat pumps, then fit them in conjunction with renewable energy solutions. And we think we can achieve that within that space. You move on to the next slide. By providing training assets in there that are as realistic as we can make them, so that they can incorporate as many of the real life challenges that these tasks would involve. I think it was Brian that said earlier on in one of his presentations that buildings on the same road offer different challenges for designers and installers. So I think if we can include many of those challenges in that training environment, then we're putting the future installers in a good position to be able to carry out retrofit solutions correctly on buildings. So that's what we're looking to deliver. And I think moving on now, that's Alex taking over.
Hello, thank you, Richard. So my role here at the College of West Anglia is as the Green Skills Manager. So I am responsible for bringing in anything which involves within that Green Skills agenda, so anything from our environment to carbon literacy through to the renewable energies and the renewable technology. Over on our Wisbech campus, we are in the process of planning, or in the process of getting, we've just got the funding, we're now sort of planning out for a new Green Skills Centre, so we can start fully delivering everything that we've got planned out, much like a lot of the other colleges in the areas. But one of the areas that we are focusing on to run alongside the retrofit side is drone surveying and thermo imaging. I'll use that word. I can never say the word. Thermal imagery. So the idea being, as we move forward with looking at retrofit, looking at energy efficiency, we can put drones up and we can get a full image of the houses, of the properties, of the buildings, and actually see if any heat loss. And with that, we can stitch these imagery together, and then we can get a full picture. And there's a lot of nice things that come with this. So as we show on the screen, it uncovers any hidden issues. We get a full 3D image. You don't have to worry about having anyone out the house. It's not intrusive on anyone because we're literally flying around the buildings. One of the most important things is the health and safety side to it as well. We're not having people go up on ladders, up on scaffolding. It really does hold that back, and it is extremely accurate the way we do it. And we can do that with thermal imagery or even just surveying side. So if you've got leaky roof tiles, if you've got a flat roof and you're not 100% sure what's under it, we can take the imagery from that, especially with thermal imagery, and actually see if there's any water, any damage, any anything that needs removing, and we can get a closer look into it. And as we move forward with this retrofit of trying to make houses a little bit more eco-efficient and better to live in, and give us, you know, a nice place to live, with the drones we can get that full imagery. And if we go on to the next slide, we can see some of the imagery that we can collect from it. Now, a lot of this isn't my own personal one. We can see our Kings Lynn campus up on the left hand side, but these are some of the imageries that we can get and what is possible with the drones. And we also have the handheld kit here as well, so we can train on how to do the inside assessments. So at the end of the day, at the end of the training, you have, not only can you have your drone license, which can be the A2 CFC, or we can go as far as the GVC, and we can do the full training. And we also give a thermal imagery qualification, so you can use the handheld units as well, and you can do a full internal inspection and be able to stitch the imagery together, so you can see that full picture, ready to be able to write a report on what is needed in that house. And there's also a lot of other things from the coming this, so not only just from house surveying, but we can also do that, especially with thermal imagery, of fault finding and things like that. So that's with an area where we are moving into, well, we're in the process of setting up and getting ready to start delivering over the next couple of months. And it will just revolutionize, really, in my opinion, of what we've done in the past, and open everyone through. And if we go on to the next slide, all my contact details are there. To how to get a hold of us. We are willing to, with having the equipment here, we can pretty much build a curriculum around what is needed. We're knowledgeable. We're happy to work with everyone, and we're even happy to come and demonstrate what we can do and how it works. Yeah, that's pretty much everything from myself. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Alex and Richard, and that concludes the run through of presentations, which is taking me right from the practical works that have been undertaken and the opportunities that can fall out of that for people wanting to get into the sector moving forward. So I'd like to thank all the speakers who've come along and explained that so far. We've now got opportunity for a question and answer session. We've got an expert panel with representatives from EQUANs, United Living Retrofit Academy, and of course, depending on questions that we might call in other colleagues around the room as well. So so that's it. Open outside. Has anybody got any questions by raising their hand? So I think we've got did I see a hand come up? I'm just trying to see where. So we've got a hand up from Maria. So hello, Maria.
Hello there. I mean, you've said that one of the barriers with regards to residents is not knowing, or obviously the intrusion in their lives, etc., and not knowing what disruption there's going to be. My perception is, especially with the air pumps, is that there's some internal decoration that's needed following on from this. Have I got that perception wrong? I actually work for Clarion, so obviously I'm speaking to residents, and if I've got it wrong, I want to make sure that I've got the right perception of it all as well, really.
Yeah, an answer to your question, Marina, and it's a good question, actually. Yes, it depends, because sometimes you have to resize the radiators, so you may need to remove the radiators,
Yeah.
bigger size radiators in there. So where you've got that existing radiator, if you have a bit of, you've got a wallpaper behind it, there's going to be some, not damage, but it's going to be miscoloured and what have you, and we may need to run some new pipe work as well. So yeah, so there is an element of decorations that would need to be done by the resident following the works, really.
And presumably there's no funding for that. That would actually be generally paid for by the resident.
I would assume so. Yes, it's not covered under our scheme, really. Yeah, I mean, yes, it's
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. Robin.
Yeah, thank you. I've got quite a few questions, as probably you'd expect from me. I'm quite passionate about this sector of industry. The biggest problem that we've all seen in the press a lot is ventilation issues. And we all know that when you insulate like this and seal up homes retrospectively, that can create big problems with ventilation, particularly humidity. So I'm just wondering how you deal with that, because of course we can open a window and ventilate the property, but then that lets all that very energy efficient heat back out into the atmosphere. So I'm just wondering how much detail you put into ventilation, and particularly heat recovery ventilation. Thank you.
Who would like to answer that one?
I can answer part of it. So in terms of our ventilation strategy, we work with our retrofit designer, but a lot of it is half purge, half not. So the point that you're making about getting rid of all the heat, basically we try not to do that, but at the same time, the property does need ventilation, otherwise you will get mold or condensation. So the way we go about it is we obviously make sure there's undercuts on all the doors that is necessary for room to room, so ventilation can flow. Then we have trickle vents in our windows, and we also have demand controlled fans in the wet rooms, so they'll constantly be running, and they'll run at a higher speed. For example, if you take a really hot shower and it gets really humid in there, then that will take all the air out that way. We haven't actually installed any mechanical heat recovery, so I can't answer that one on how that works. With the retrofit designer might be able to tell us a bit more, but just in terms of general ventilation, that's kind of how we deal with ours.
I mean, just to add to that, Dan, I mean, yeah, just to say that ventilation is a core part of the work, consideration of ventilation and a ventilation strategy, and that's required under the PAS 2035 sort of retrofit standard. And if, in fact, therefore, what we are doing is normally improving the ventilation in these homes from what they were, before the work took place. And yes, the residents need to be obviously told about the fact that ventilation is important. It's important anyway, but that it's important now that the energy efficiency has been improved, and that they should let those systems operate. And we haven't gone to the level of having to put in the heat recovery systems, because in that sense, although we've for some of these homes, and as been shown in the presentations, we certainly drove down improved their performance and reduced their heating demand substantially. But we haven't done it to such a degree whereby you sort of put in these heat recovery ventilation systems, which obviously are a little bit more complicated, because they are providing ventilation, and you're also putting in the technology to sort of to make sure that when the fresh air comes in, the heat from the stale air going out is transferred into that fresh air coming in. And but yeah, we haven't needed to put those in order to ensure that the air is, they're having plenty of fresh air in these homes.
Thanks for that, Robin. I think you mentioned some other questions as well, so I'll hand back to you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to hog the question and answer thing here, but I'll just do the two brief questions quickly now, and then I'll leave it to everybody else. But so I'll do both of them now. One is, and I had to look it up during the presentation to be fair, but PAS 2030 and PAS 2035, bearing in mind I'm just a bog standard councillor, I knew nothing about that, but I have sort of briefly looked it up and got a sort of understanding, but if that could be explained a little bit more, that'd be helpful. And my final question is photovoltaics, obviously generating this electricity cleanly to obviously run the air source heat pumps, which are clearly reliant on electricity. I'm just wondering how focused you are on providing that to residents in terms of how do you select that? Are you trying to do PV pretty much everywhere or where you can, or what's your approach to PV for residents, as well as reducing their energy costs? Thank you.
Thanks for that, Robin. So Daniel, would you be able to help on the PAS 35 one?
Yes, I can give a very quick overview, and probably more could be said by SARS and others who are obviously implementing it on a day-to-day basis. And then I can also outline about Clarion's approach to PV and other energy efficiency technologies, if you like. So, I mean, PAS 2035, in effect, the way to look at that is the retrofit standard, in that it's been set up and designed to ensure that energy efficiency measures, when they're being put in well, high quality, but also that to avoid any unintended consequences, which is often the phrase used, in that if you do just put insulation onto properties, onto different walls, different ways, and don't properly look at the property and think about how moisture, ventilation you're just talking about, is dealt with, and also making sure that there's a consistent approach to the application of that insulation, you can have issues with, well, basically condensation, damp and mold by the fact that you can have cold areas of wall that wasn't there before, or a concentration of cold areas of wall where the condensation can collect, and then you have damp and mold obviously building up. That's sort of the basis of this whole, well, one of the reasons anyway, a key reason for why this framework of PAS 2035 was set up. It's a very rigorous process that we are following throughout the whole way that we're doing this type of work, a whole holistic approach to ensure that it's all being done well and following all the processes, and some of the people touched on that today. And others might want to add to that quick introduction I've just provided. In terms of from Clarion's perspective and how we are approaching energy efficiency in our homes, and how we, in that sense, choose what we're choosing to invest in and to lead to those improvements. I mean, we have to date very much been following the concept of fabric first, which is a phrase or jargon that's referring to improving, in essence, the insulation of our properties, to try and ensure that the heat demand of our properties is as low as possible, so as to reduce the heating costs for a resident, and the energy needs of those properties. So that's that concept of fabric first. That you're insulating well, the windows and doors are good, and also making sure you don't have particularly bad drafts and air leaking out the property and taking all the heat with it. But within that, obviously, then the heating technologies themselves are important, which is why we've been installing these air source heat pumps, particularly in our off-gas properties where there isn't gas around, which otherwise is, still obviously has been the cheapest fuel. And that's these air source heat pumps are a very efficient technology, very efficient way of converting using electricity to generate heat. And to therefore contribute further with those insulation improvements to reduce those heating costs and heating needs of the properties. We have installed, and we're looking at, obviously, solar panels are great. They provide that electricity that then residents can use directly in the home. Obviously, environmental benefit of that, and also sort of cost-saving benefit of that. So it's a bit one of in a way that's not been looked at as the key measure, because if you were to put, let's say, for example, spend the money on the solar panel but not on improving the insulation, then obviously you still have a high heat cost if you've got heat or leaking out the building. So there's a bit of a balance to be had for that. We've certainly installed a lot of heat pump, a lot of solar panels under the SHDF demonstrator project, where we really improving the properties, and they were getting right up to EPC band B and EPC band A, very, very high standard. And we are continuing to look at how we can continue to install solar panels whilst at the same time improving the insulation of our properties.
Thanks, Daniel. Robin, does that sort of give you a flavour to the questions that you asked?
Yes, it does. I mean, the whole presentation has been very interesting. So, yeah, no, that's answered my questions very well. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm looking down. I don't think we've got any further hands up. So I'm soon going to be handing back to you, because in terms of, I'd like to welcome Councillor Robin Betts, who's a Cabinet Member for Climate Change, Regeneration and Property at Tonbridge and Morling Borough Council. And I think he's going the extra mile, because I do believe you might be on holiday as well. So I will hand over to you now, Robin.
Thank you, Dan. No, I'm back from holiday now, thank goodness. So,
are you back?
No, I've just, obviously I've got, not to talk about myself too much, but I've got a very much passion for this sector of the industry. We set up a diversification business on our dairy farm I won't talk about it too much, but it's a cheese making enterprise. But from the outset, we set it up to be very energy efficient, and that was way back in 2004. And then, of course, things progressed, and by 2011, we realised that there was a potential path to get to carbon neutral. And by 2013, we achieved that with our cheese making production, and that was way before it became an agenda item. So that I don't want to say too much about myself, but that's my history, and so I'm really passionate about what's going on now. And then with that, in 2013, we were one of the very first. Back then, it was a bit of a crazy idea, but to start using an electric vehicle. And we installed the first public charging point in the southeast, just beating, I think, IBM Reading by about a month or whatever. So that's our claim to fame, anyway. But the presentation that I've heard today, this afternoon, it's actually parts of it have actually given me so much more insight into what Clarion do, and I didn't realise that. So I'm really impressed. So I've written a few notes here. I won't bore everyone too much, but the fascination that I found in this presentation was the support that Clarion are giving. It's not just about being a home provider, but the support that you outlined in the first presentation to your tenants, and supporting communities, and indeed support through jobs and skills, upskilling, and many other areas of that, I thought was really, really positive step forward for Clarion, and something I knew nothing about. Just thought you were a housing provider. So there you go. It's something that's given me a bit more insight. So the next thing I've just written down here, and that's the challenges. I put that in capitals. Retrofitting just seems to me to be a massive amount of challenges. Going to the detail of and I'll just put this as a question as well, but the detail, and you can answer at the end of my wrap up here, but going to the detail of insulating below DPC, and that, looking at that's a major that's major works, and I can only presume the reason you've done that is to stop the cold bridging potentially from ground to floor. Yeah, I was just guessing at that, but that kind of detail I was really impressed with, and also the planning aspects and visual impact. So it's looking at all those different things that as people on the outside, you don't get to appreciate that what you're trying to do here, and the challenges that you're set with. I put in UKPN in with exclamation marks. I don't know which one of you said about that now, but I can understand that, because being on a dairy farm, we've had to upgrade our power supplies, and dealing with UKPN was an absolute nightmare. So I can fully appreciate that doing multiple homes and dealing with the utility providers and network providers, headache in itself. So what I did put in capitals, just should have said that this is the opening, actually, is retrofitting is bigger than all the new development that's happening at the moment in Tonbridge and Morley. So in other words, we've got 54,000 homes that we need to try and get to a carbon neutral status at some point. And so the retrofitting thing is so far bigger than what people think about new development and new planning policies for new development. So I just thought I'd put that out there in the area as such. And then what was really nice to see was your use of local SMEs, local businesses, and helping local businesses improve and grow. I thought that was a really, really good approach, and jumped out at me. And then all I've put here is jobs, opportunities. Because looking at a triangle there, what we require from the skills and the industries and the job opportunities for that, how you're supporting that, was again quite fascinating. I'm getting to the end now, but there's so many good things out of this. The porter cabin construction at Mid-Kent College, I thought was brilliant. I'd love to go and see that. That was incredible. And then drones. I watched the Jeremy Clarkson Amazon where he's doing the Amazon film thing that farming program that he did, and he used a drone to get the sheep in, and then from that we started using drones to get the cows in, which is quite a wacky way of doing things. So watching what you did with the drone with the heat source heat mapping, I thought again was fascinating, and an industry that could certainly grow and grow and grow. So on that, I'll wrap this up and say thank you so much to all the presentations and everyone that's joined in, and those that maybe couldn't have done, and I'm sure can get a video on this. But overall, I thought it was a great presentation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Robin. So there is actually one question just snuck in on the chat I've noticed. So I'm going to just, as we've got just a couple of minutes left, it's from Sean, and it's how is the recruitment of the different installation SMEs coming along, bearing in mind the pressures on new house building? Anybody who would like to have a go at answering that one?
I don't mind giving a bit of feedback on that. So the strategy we're taking is basically to, as I've mentioned in the presentation, is to engage and have those conversations with contractors, sense checking regularly what the plan is, because we're finding, what we have found in the past, say for example, EWI installers have jumped ship for an extra 50 pence a square metre. So obviously there's a massive demand out there. So for us, it's about growing that loyalty within the supply chain, sharing your order book with your contractor, and working with them to see how you can support them to grow. We're finding, working that way with them and helping them to upscale is maybe just as good an approach than it is to get more additional subcontractors on. I mean, that is happening, but it's you getting them in and then you're growing them and trying to reassure them that workflow is there. So I guess that's the carrot. I mean, EQUANs might want to add some more on that, 'cause I know they've got loads of work. That's just how we're finding it at United Living.
Thanks, Rebecca. Anything else from EQUANs before we?
No, I think you're right. It's certainly when we got on this journey of sustainable homes, it was the very small supply chain. As I said before, everyone was fishing out of the same pond, if you like, and people, quite rightly, as Rebecca said, were jumping for more money to go elsewhere. And we say this word, and I know not everybody likes it, but visibility for us is important for us to have our supply chain to buy in, so we can give them exactly what we're going to be delivering over the next couple of years. With that becomes efficiencies, because the more work we can give them, the more efficient they become, the more they want to buy into what we're doing. And that's what we're trying to do here, is to get everything efficient, from the supply chain to giving an efficient homes for the residents to live in.
Excellent. Thanks all for the answers, and thanks for the questions that have come through. Just a quick shout out before we finish up. Particularly like to thank Joe and David from Clarion Futures, Victoria and Daniel from Clarion, Alex Collister, West Anglia, Jeremy and Lucy from Tonbridge and Morling, and Richard Wild as well, for all the help and support pulling this event together. I hope I've caught everybody in the thanks there, and also I hope I did mention Anne Wardle at Fenland District Council for all her help, because she's been a star as well. So thanks to all that have for coming on today. I think we will do some more press on advertising this, because if you look through this presentation, there's real opportunities, and certainly we at Fenland want our residents and businesses to think about these opportunities, because we need to build that capacity. It's quite clear from the numbers that I saw in this presentation, and what opportunities for people to develop their own careers. So thanks all for coming along, and take care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers for the invite.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.